Is anybody out there? Think about it, we're just intelligent monkeys floating around in incomprehensible nothingness, hopelessly tiny and desolate. We haven't found extraterrestrial life yet, and there's a strong probability that we won't run into aliens in our lifetime. What about on Earth? Are we just as alone here too? Let's recall the useless phylogeny that we were forced to memorize in high school. Kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. For the human species, we have to climb past genus and all the way to family to find another creature even remotely similar to us. Dogs have brothers like jackals and coyotes within the same genus, cows have yaks, and even horses have donkeys and zebras. All we humans have are far distant relatives like chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans that, like Hitler's relatives in America would say, are nothing like us and whom we really don't want to be associated with. You know, we weren't always this alone. Back in the day, we once had several brothers within the Homo genus and hominids family to share this gorgeous planet with. We, my dear viewer, are in the animal kingdom, chorade phylum, mammal class, primate order, hominid family, Homo genus, and Homo sapiens species. We're the only ones that survived the heartless squid games of Mother Nature. Who are the other contestants? What happened to them? Let's set sail for the Neanderthals! Our brothers who didn't make it. The creature that most resembles us is the chimpanzee. We share a staggering 98.6% of our DNA with them. It might seem like we have a lot in common, but they're still pretty far removed from us on the taxonomic hierarchy. Where are our brothers? We're looking for the homos, our ancient relatives like the Homo erectus and Homo habilis. Specifically, Homo neanderthalensis, commonly known as Neanderthals, was the last to be disqualified. Neanderthals settled in the Altai Mountains and Palestine before us, and are particularly famous for directly competing with us Homo sapiens for survival. Spoiler alert, we won. In 1856, Neanderthal remains were discovered for the first time ever in the Neander Valley of Germany. Because Thal literally means valley in German, the name Neanderthal means Neander Valley. Beautiful name. Mind you, this was back during the age of imperialism, before Charles Darwin published his theory of evolution and mildly annoyed some Christians. Archaeologists of the time didn't think that these were the remains of intelligent humans. They assumed that Neanderthals were just another type of stupid ancient monkey. Over 500 remains have been discovered in various locations since the initial discovery of Neanderthals in the Neander Valley back in 1856. The discovery of La Chapelle aux Saints I, also known as just the Old Man, changed everything overnight in 1908. It proved that Neanderthals were not, in fact, stupid ancient monkeys, but instead a lot closer to humans than we ever thought. The Old Man, as you could probably guess, was a man so old that he had a hunched back, arthritis, and severe tooth loss. Well, what's so special about being old? Alright, let's be honest. Seniors are practically useless from a physical labor standpoint. They're fragile, and more or less an accidental slip in the bathtub away from the grave. Let's look at some mammals like wolves or lions. They really don't have that long of a lifespan because once they get old enough to be a useless burden, they're cast away from the group and left to die alone. Kinda like how Grandpa had to be shipped away to a nursing home to hang out with people like him. However, highly intelligent mammals like dolphins or elephants have a comparatively longer lifespan. This is because these are primarily social animals, and the group supports and respects the elder members for contributing their accumulated experience. The fact that this particular old man survived long enough to be this old meant that he was protected and respected by younger Neanderthals, and this, in turn, meant that Neanderthals were also highly intelligent creatures instead of a stupid ancient monkey. Yes, Neanderthals are smaller than modern humans, but they were significantly bigger and stronger than the sapiens of their time. They even had a bigger brain than modern humans. Neanderthals were found to be smart enough to have a language, utilize fire, paint in caves, and even craft musical instruments and tools. So, how the hell did this promising candidate, an intelligent species with a physical advantage, get disqualified like this? Nobody knows for sure, and it's still a debated issue. You can technically breed tigers with lions, but Mother Nature will castrate the resulting offspring for being an abomination. Dogs and wolves, on the other hand, are still biologically the same species and can keep breeding with each other for generations. Whether humans can breed with other species is something that was the subject of great curiosity for millennia, shown in mythology from minotaurs to centaurs. However, current Homo sapiens are physically unable to breed with any other animal, despite the best attempts of some really fucked up people in Florida. Thus, the question of, during the limited time when Homo sapiens and Neanderthals coexisted, was it possible for hybrids to be born, was a fiercely debated question throughout the scientific community. DNA analysis showed the answer to be a resounding absolutely in the early 2010s. Shockingly, it was also discovered that 1 to 4% of our DNA actually comes from Neanderthals. Humans and Neanderthals apparently had a complicated relationship, wildly vacillating between fighting and loving like a couple in a really toxic relationship. You see, sapiens and Neanderthals were in the same genus, slightly different mutations from our common ancestor, Homo heidelbergensis. Just like how humanity's ancient ancestors split off into the Peking Man and the Java Man during their migration from Africa to Eurasia, this is where we split off from Neanderthals. Because no traces of Neanderthals have been discovered from tribes south of the Sahara Desert, it's widely assumed that they were direct descendants of the Homo heidelbergensis that escaped Africa early on. We, the prevailing sapiens, are assumed to be direct descendants of the ones that stayed in Africa, although we too followed the Neanderthals out of Africa and into Eurasia eventually. Now, imagine their surprise at the eventual reunion. We were still physically pretty similar to Neanderthals, and that meant that we were forced to compete over the same territories and food. The world wasn't big enough for both Neanderthals and sapiens to coexist. One of the two species had to either go extinct or get absorbed. We already know how the story ends. We're the only ones left. But the question remains, why? There are several theories. Right off the bat, Homo sapiens had the physical and mental advantage. Yes, Neanderthals were bigger and stronger. However, that also brought about a severe disadvantage. They had terrible miles per gallon. Neanderthals burned through twice as many calories as sapiens. Conveniently, the two species had to duke it out during the brutally cold Ice Age. You really needed to be energy efficient to survive during those times. We were better adapted to the environment just because we could survive longer on less food. Neanderthals, on the other hand, were significantly better at storing energy through fat to make up for their terrible fuel economy. Remember how I said that there was some interspecies breeding? The resulting hybrid got the best of both worlds and was able to efficiently use and store energy. That's why Americans are fat, by the way. Modern civilization really isn't anything more than a blip in comparison to the millions of years where starving to death was pretty common. This helpful gene prevailed to this day and now causes obesity. That really backfired on us, didn't it? Our bodies are still programmed to store fat as if we're in the Ice Age. There's your convenient excuse for why your diet is failing. It's a genetic problem. Totally not because you're lazy or anything. Homo sapiens also had the mental advantage. A modern human's brain is about 1,450 cc, remarkably big compared to the other animals. However, Neanderthals were even more big-brained than us. As you can tell by how whales and elephants aren't building nukes, big brain doesn't necessarily mean smart. The sapiens' cerebellum was about 8 times bigger than a Neanderthal's, which was significant, considering how 80% of all neurons are there. The cerebellum also helps out with precise muscular movements, linguistics, visual processing, and social skills. If anything, these factors are what put us at the top of the food chain. Our brains were smaller, but way more efficient. As an insecure man would say, it's not the size that matters, it's how you use it. Homo sapiens multiplied like crazy due to the energy efficiency difference. Our advanced brains meant that we were way better at hunting and getting more energy. When the dust settled, we were the only ones left. There's an interesting theory that says Neanderthals might not have had whites in their eyes. Not many animals, not even current primates, have such distinct whites in their eyes like us. Humans use this to communicate with nothing but our eyes. We could tell what another person is looking at or pointing to just by observing their eyes. This enables a whole new level of communication, like empathy, that directly led to successful hunts and a better society. This was so useful that we're programmed to find this attractive. Here, I'll give you an example. Put some whites in the eyes of this disturbing picture, and then suddenly, you get some high-quality wife material that'll do a fantastic job of loving you for the rest of your life. Here's another convenient coincidence. Humans started to have dogs around 40,000 to 28,000 years ago. That happens to coincide with the time that Neanderthals started to vanish. Coincidence? As of April 2022, there's no archaeological evidence that Neanderthals had dogs. This could have theoretically been the deciding factor in our survival and their demise. If you stare into the dull, unsuspecting eyes of your genetically deformed dog, you could see that it also has whites in its eyes. Dogs and wolves could non-verbally communicate with humans through those unnatural whites, immediately trading a large amount of information and emotion. This could have led to the current alliance we have today, the most powerful interspecies cooperation on Earth. The seamless combination of a dog's hypersensitive sense of smell with a human's intelligence made us overpowered. Homo sapiens were able to meticulously craft tools, use energy efficiently, communicate with sophisticated language, utilize a better mental GPU for graphics, hyper-socialize through the whites in our eyes, and ally with dogs. You might say that we were inevitable. Regardless of the reason, Neanderthals were completely wiped off the face of the earth around 28,000 years ago, haunting us modern Homo sapiens with 4% of their DNA. Whether we brutally murdered them in conflict or passively outcompeted them. That's how we ended up alone. In a way, I'm glad that 7.7 billion people on Earth are just Homo sapiens. Hell, our embarrassing history was filled with pointless wars over things as trivial as skin color. All you have to do is look at X-Men to see what would have happened if there were another mutant species running around. Do you think we would have been able to coexist? I'm personally not too sure. We already won the Squid Games of Mother Nature. Perhaps we could stop some pointless violence, kick back, and enjoy our victory. Sapiens is derived from the Latin word for wise, and I don't know, nuking ourselves back to the Stone Age doesn't seem particularly wise of us. This has been David Bradford from Knowledge Raiders, and thank you for watching.